What if one day, the winds aligned just right, and a fire started in the perfect spot, burning through Los Angeles all the way to the ocean? Joe Rogan once warned of this terrifying possibility, and as wildfires grow more extreme in California, his words are starting to feel less like a prediction and more like a chilling reality. In this video, we dive into Rogan's haunting prophecy, his own close calls with the flames, and the alarming science behind why LA might be in more danger than ever before. Joe Rogan's ominous words about the potential for Los Angeles to burn in a catastrophic wildfire have evolved from casual podcast speculation to a terrifyingly real possibility. It all began in 2024, during an episode of The Joe Rogan Experience, when Rogan recalled a conversation he had with a firefighter many years prior. The firefighter had made a startling prediction that resonated deeply with Rogan. One day, it's going to be the right wind, and fire is going to start in the right place, and it's going to burn through LA all the way to the ocean. In recounting this conversation, Rogan's tone was heavy with foreboding. He painted a vivid picture of a scenario in which the fire spread so quickly and so extensively that even the most skilled firefighting efforts would be helpless in the face of it. The firefighter's warning was clear: once the right conditions were in place, the dry vegetation, the fierce Santa Ana winds, and the ever-increasing urban sprawl, there would be nothing that could be done to stop it. Rogan had been speaking about this ominous warning for years, but it wasn't until later that the full gravity of the prediction began to sink in. At the time, wildfires in California were not uncommon, but they were usually contained to rural areas or the more mountainous parts of the state. However, with each passing year, the intensity of the fires increased. They weren't just occurring in remote regions anymore. They were threatening urban areas, racing toward heavily populated cities like Los Angeles. In 2018, Rogan had his own first-hand encounter with this reality. Living in Bell Canyon, Ventura County, Rogan and his family were forced to evacuate as the Woolsey Fire, a rapidly spreading blaze, came dangerously close to their home. As the fire consumed thousands of acres, Rogan was struck by the speed with which the fire spread, and he began to fully grasp the terrifying potential for a fire to move through a densely populated area like Los Angeles. The flames weren't just threatening wilderness areas anymore. They were encroaching on the very communities where people lived, worked, and raised their families. Rogan's warning, spoken with the knowledge gained from that personal experience and bolstered by his understanding of the science behind wildfires, began to take on new significance. The terrifying possibility of a firestorm engulfing Los Angeles from the mountains to the ocean became an increasingly plausible scenario. It was no longer a matter of if such a disaster would happen but when. In 2019, while discussing climate change with journalist David Wallace-Wells, Rogan pointed out that some scientists had predicted California's wildfires could become 64 times more intense by the end of the century. In his mind, these warnings were not just about the changing climate. They were about the changing reality of living in California. As the population grew, more homes were built near fire-prone areas, and the risk of a massive, uncontrollable fire like the one described by the firefighter seemed more likely. Joe Rogan's chilling wildfire prediction is becoming a reality. But what recent disaster has brought his eerie forecast to life? Continue watching to discover how the devastating fires in California align with his warning and why his prophecy might be more than just a prediction. This January of 2025 saw Los Angeles caught in the grips of one of the most devastating wildfire seasons the city had ever experienced. What started as isolated sparks in the mountain regions surrounding the city quickly spiraled out of control, evolving into a series of catastrophic blazes that ravaged not only the wildlands but urban centers as well. The sheer scale and intensity of the fires seemed to confirm what Joe Rogan had been warning about for years. This wasn't a distant, hypothetical scenario, but a terrifying reality coming to life. The 2025 fire season began with two major wildfires, the Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire. Both fires started in the hills of Los Angeles but soon grew into raging infernos that overwhelmed the firefighting efforts. Rogan, who had repeatedly warned about the dangers of Southern California's unique geography, climate, and wind conditions, had accurately predicted the conditions that would fuel these fires. The intense heat, dry conditions, and the powerful Santa Ana winds set the stage for one of the most destructive fire seasons in modern history. The Palisades Fire, which began in the western part of Los Angeles, was one of the first signs that this fire season would be catastrophic. What began as a small brush fire rapidly escalated as the Santa Ana winds picked up, turning it into an uncontrollable inferno. Within hours, the fire surged through the canyons and hillsides of the Santa Monica Mountains, advancing toward the affluent coastal communities of Malibu. The flames, pushed by winds that Rogan had long spoken about, grew out of control. The dry brush, parched by months of drought, acted as a perfect fuel source, enabling the fire to spread faster than anyone anticipated. As the fire tore through Malibu, it became clear that no area was safe. The fire moved relentlessly down the hills, threatening iconic communities like Santa Monica, Venice, and Pacific Palisades. Celebrities and longtime residents who thought they were insulated from such dangers found themselves in the path of destruction. Homes, some valued at millions of dollars, were consumed by the flames in mere hours. It wasn't just about losing property, it was about the complete devastation of lives and communities that had been built up over decades. Rogan's warnings of a fire that could spread from the hills all the way to the ocean now seemed like a prophecy being fulfilled in real time. The fast-moving blaze left behind a trail of destruction, with roads clogged with evacuees and air thick with smoke and ash. The fire was unstoppable, and evacuation orders spread across the city in every direction. At nearly the same time, the Eaton fire was making its way through the eastern parts of Los Angeles County, threatening the suburban communities that lie on the outskirts of the city. The Eaton fire started in the foothills of the San Gabriel Mountains and quickly spread to the densely populated neighborhoods below. With the winds continuing to fuel its spread, the fire moved towards the northeast, consuming everything in its path. Much like the Palisades fire, it was an unstoppable force that overwhelmed both firefighters and residents alike. The fire spread across multiple cities, including Altadena and Pasadena, forcing tens of thousands of people to evacuate their homes. For these suburban areas, the fire was a stark reminder that no one, no matter how far from the city center, was immune to the threat of wildfires. It was a sobering realization that the scope of the 2025 fire season had gone beyond the wildlands and into the heart of the metropolitan areas of Los Angeles. The impact on Los Angeles was staggering. Over 100,000 residents were forced to evacuate their homes in both the western and eastern parts of the city, while more than 40,000 acres of land were scorched. Entire communities, some of which had been established for generations, were destroyed by the flames. For many, including the affluent coastal areas of Malibu, Santa Monica, and Venice, the fire was a shocking reminder that even the most luxurious homes and well-established neighborhoods were not immune to nature's fury. The fast-moving nature of the fire meant that many had only minutes to evacuate, leaving behind belongings, memories, and entire livelihoods. In the immediate aftermath, Los Angeles was left in a state of uncertainty. The sheer scale of the devastation was beyond comprehension. The firestorm had moved with such speed that it left firefighters and emergency responders scrambling to keep up. Roads that once provided access to safe zones were now choked with traffic as residents fled, desperate to escape the encroaching flames. As the fire continued its path toward the ocean, the destruction in its wake was indiscriminate. Entire blocks were incinerated, including homes, shops, schools, and even some of the city's cultural landmarks. In Malibu alone, entire neighborhoods were turned to ash, and the oceanfront real estate that once promised safety from wildfires was now engulfed in smoke and flames. One of the most striking aspects of the 2025 California wildfires was the number of high-profile celebrities whose homes were either destroyed or severely threatened by the flames. Malibu, long regarded as a glamorous haven for Hollywood's elite, was hit particularly hard. With its picturesque coastal views, sprawling estates, and celebrity residence, Malibu became ground zero for the firestorm that devastated the region. Among the thousands of displaced residents were some of the most recognizable names in entertainment, stars like Paris Hilton, Mandy Moore, and the Kardashian family, all of whom found themselves forced to flee their homes as the wildfire spread with terrifying speed. Paris Hilton, a longtime Malibu resident known for her lavish lifestyle and multiple business ventures, faced a harrowing evacuation as the 2025 fires began to tear through the area. Hilton's sprawling estate, which sat nestled in the hills above Malibu, was directly in the path of the inferno. As the flames approached her home, Hilton was forced to evacuate, along with her family and pets. Fortunately, she escaped unharmed, but her luxury home was one of many high-end properties in Malibu that were at risk or completely destroyed. Hilton, who had used her platform to advocate for a variety of causes over the years, took to social media during the crisis to express her shock and to raise awareness about the destructive power of wildfires. She, like many others in Malibu, was forced to reckon with the harsh reality that no amount of wealth or privilege could shield them from nature's fury. The firestorm was an equalizer, touching the lives of the rich and the poor alike. For actress and singer Mandy Moore, 2025 was a year of not only professional milestones but personal loss. Moore, known for her role in This Is Us and her successful music career, found herself once again in the midst of a wildfire emergency. The Woolsey fire in 2018 had already forced her to evacuate, but this year's fires hit even closer to home. Mandy and her family, living in Altadena, were forced to flee once again as the flames raced toward their property. Thankfully, Moore and her family were able to evacuate without harm, but her home, much like others, was not immune to the fire's destruction. Moore shared her experience with her fans, speaking candidly about the trauma of being displaced and losing her home to the flames. Her social media posts highlighted not just the personal toll of the disaster but the larger issue of fire management and the need for a sustainable, long-term approach to preventing such catastrophic fires in the future. The emotional toll of having to evacuate for the second time in a matter of years was profound, and Moore was vocal about the broader implications of California's growing fire threat. Perhaps no family embodies the intersection of fame and fortune in California more than the Kardashian-Jenner clan. This 2025, Kim Kardashian West, Kylie Jenner, Kendall Jenner, and other members of the family found themselves caught in the fires that consumed Malibu and the surrounding areas. For the Kardashians, who had built an empire around their homes, businesses, and public personas, the fire was a stark reminder that no one is immune from nature's unpredictability. Kim Kardashian West, who had faced the terror of wildfires before in 2018 when she had to evacuate her Hidden Hills home, once again found herself in the path of the flames. This time, the fires threatened both her own property and that of her family members. In the middle of the night, Kardashian West and her family rushed to safety, joining thousands of other residents in fleeing the blaze. Fortunately, her home and those of her family members were spared, but the devastation in the area was unimaginable. Kylie Jenner, who had built her own multi-million-dollar empire in Calabasas, was forced to evacuate her home as well. The fires that ravaged the area were so intense that many homes were completely obliterated. Jenner took to social media to document her experience, reflecting on the trauma of losing property and witnessing the devastation firsthand. The Kardashian-Jenner family, despite their immense wealth and influence, found themselves in the same vulnerable position as countless other families living in fire-prone areas. Kendall Jenner, who owns a property in the Malibu area, was also forced to evacuate as the fire spread relentlessly toward the coast. Though her home managed to survive the flames, like her sisters, Kendall was forced to confront the reality of the growing fire risks in California. The fire season was no longer just a concern for the state's rural communities, it had become a clear and present danger to those living in some of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the world. While the homes of Paris Hilton, Mandy Moore, and the Kardashians grabbed media attention, the true devastation of the 2025 fires extended far beyond celebrity circles. Thousands of ordinary families lost their homes, their livelihoods, and their communities. More than 10 people were confirmed dead by early January, and the true death toll was expected to rise as authorities continued to search the ruins. The fires in California, especially in the celebrity-packed areas of Malibu and Calabasas, serve as a powerful reminder of how vulnerable all residents are to the growing threat of wildfires. While the media attention focused on the high-profile names whose homes were destroyed, the real tragedy lay in the countless families who had to leave behind everything they had worked for, without the resources or backup plans that many of these celebrities had. Ultimately, the 2025 firestorm wasn't just a disaster for the famous and the rich. It was a catastrophe for anyone in its path, leaving a wake of destruction and heartbreak across Southern California. As the fires continued to burn across Los Angeles, it was clear that Rogan's warnings were not exaggerations. The fire moved with frightening speed and force, just as he had described on his podcast. What was once a hypothetical scenario